Good morning from the U.S. Embassy in Kingston, Jamaica. Welcome to Consular Conversations, Happy Pride Month, and Caribbean American Heritage Month. I'm your host, Camila. As always, we're going to wait a few minutes to give people the opportunity to tune in. But today, we are once again joined by two very special guests. First up, we have our ARSO, Val, who will talk to us a little bit about hurricane preparedness. And then after a brief video showcasing hurricane preparedness tips, we will then be joined by our former Consular Conversations host and current ACS officer, Des. Thank you for joining us today, Val.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
And Val, what is an ARSO?
So an ARSO is Assistant Regional Security Officer. We are special agents with the Bureau of Diplomatic Security. We work overseas at U.S. embassies to keep the embassy and the staff secure and safe.
So now let's talk a little bit about hurricane preparedness before we get to some of the questions from our audience today. So Val, as the ARSO, you are in charge of course, making sure the embassy and all of the embassy employees are prepared for any emergency situation, which includes hurricanes. So would you mind sharing some tips on how we can be prepared for a hurricane should one occur in Jamaica?
There's four things that are very important to keep in mind. Shelter, water, food, and communication.
Perfect. So let's start off with shelter. What do we have to worry about when it comes to shelter?
Okay, so shelter is going to be a place where your family can safely ride out the storm, someplace where they can safely seek shelter. This is the most important one because without shelter, it doesn't matter how prepared you are with your other items. If you don't have a place where you can be safe, the other preparation was done in vain. So for a shelter, you want to find a place in your house, preferably where there's no windows, no glass, anything like that. For example, in my house, we have a closet that's under the stairs, and that's where my family would seek shelter. If you can't find a place that has no windows, then you're going to have to look for a way that you can secure those windows. Having plywood that's pre-cut is a good idea, but I've seen signs around Kingston that say you can rent plyboard. I'm assuming they get very busy when hurricane season comes. If you can't get the wood, then you might want to look for heavy furniture you can put in front of those windows, something to block the glass. And as a last resort, you could always hang, let's say, heavy blankets or sheets in front of the window. So if the glass does break, it's not going to come in and be dangerous to your family.
Great. And what are some threats that can happen to your shelter?
Yeah, so your shelter, you want to look around the outside of your house and you want to see, are there large trees or branches nearby that could get knocked over by the wind? Are there telephone poles or electric wires that might fall down into your property and pose a threat to your family? And also, you want to think about items that are outside that could be dangerous, picked up by the wind, tools, bricks, large rocks, things like that could become a danger if the wind gets really, really fast.
Great. And so should your shelter be on the ground floor or is it possible to have it higher?
It really depends on where your house is located. If flooding is a threat that you're concerned about, then you want to have it higher up. But the danger with that is that oftentimes there's just a thin roof over top of the second floors of houses. And the wind is the real big threat, that if it takes that roof off, then there goes your shelter. You want to try and have a place that has concrete on all 6 sides, top and bottom included. And so that's why being on the first floor might be your best bet, but you'll have to go with the situation.
Great. And speaking about flooding, how about we talk a little bit about water? Because that is definitely one of the resources that is most important during a hurricane, correct?
Exactly. Yes, and we know that people can go a lot longer without food than they can go without water. But with water, you might have a nice big cistern outside your house, a big tank, but if it gets knocked over, if the pipes from it get damaged, due to flooding, the water sources could get contaminated. So you want to have a supply of bottled water around. And bottled water is readily available in Jamaica, a bunch of different sizes. I like the big jugs that have the handles, as you can carry them around very easily. It's a great option to have. One of those will get one person through a few days, no problem. We want to look to have about 1 gallon per person per day at the bare minimum. So let's say you had a family of 3 and you'd need, for 3 days, you'd need at least 9 gallons. But I'd recommend definitely having more. Go for 3 to 5 gallons and you'll definitely be set for all your needs, hand washing, cleaning, all that stuff.
Okay, perfect. And now I know our viewers love food. So what's the best way to prepare when it comes to our food supplies?
Yeah. So unfortunately, you're going to have to mostly go with non-perishable food. Might not be the most delicious to get you through a few days, but canned food is a great option. Something you open it up, you can eat it right out of the can. You want to think about things that don't need to be cooked because you might not have access to electricity or gas to do any cooking. There's boxed items like cereal bars, regular cereal, milk, things like that are also good. Just keep in mind that cardboard packaging is susceptible to water damage and might make it not as delicious for you. Another thing that you want to think about is a grill is a great option for heating things if you don't have gas or electricity in your house. A gas grill or a charcoal grill, you can pull that out. You can heat up sauces, you can heat up soups and things like that, make them a little bit more delicious for you.
Great. And I know commercial MREs can also be available sometimes, right?
Yes, you may have heard of the meals ready to eat, or MREs, that are very famous for the U.S. military. These come with everything you need in them, a main meal, dessert, usually a way to heat the items too. It's all prepackaged. It'll last for years. You buy a couple of those and you'll be good to go. You want to think about having about 2 meals per person per day. So again, a family of 3, at least 6 meals, but maybe some more if you can.
Great. And lastly, in especially this age of social media and communication, what should we be worried about when it comes to communication or lack thereof during a hurricane?
Communication is extremely important. It's something that we often lose quickly when cell phone lines go down, the internet goes out, things like that. So you want to think about how you're going to get in touch with your friends and family if you don't have those options. A great thing, a resource to have would be a car. Besides providing a way to get around, it also can provide you a radio, so you can hear news reports and see what's going on around the island. It's also a good way to charge items. You got to have the right adapters, but you can charge your phone, laptops, things like that, so you can stay in touch with people through other means. You got to make sure you have gas in that car ahead of time, because when a hurricane hits, there's going to be lines at the gas pumps. People are going to be trying to gas up. But a car is a good option, and if you can get around with it, if the roads are passable, that's how you're going to get to your friends or family's residences, and maybe they'll have power or other ways to get in touch with other people. But you also want to make sure you know how to walk to your friends, your neighbors' houses, in case you need to get around by foot because the roads are impassable.
So make sure you know your directions when it comes to being prepared for a hurricane.
Exactly.
So Val, thank you so much for joining us today and giving us some great tips on hurricane preparedness. And as always, thank you for what you and the Regional Security Office do to keep us here safe at Embassy Kingston.
Thank you for having me.
So after this short video highlighting some of the tips that we went over today, as well as some other tips that you can use for hurricane preparedness, we'll be joined by ACS officer and former Consular Conversations host, Des. Stay tuned.
Hi, my name is Val. I'm one of the Assistant Regional Security Officers at U.S. Embassy Kingston, Jamaica. I'm here today to talk to you about hurricane preparedness. Today, I'd like to go over one of the emergency bags we provide to our American staff that they can use in case of a hurricane or other natural disaster. These bags have many items in them that you can use to keep your family safe and healthy. First, I'd like to talk about shelter, which I consider the most important aspect of hurricane preparedness. In these bags, you'll find a tent. This can be used in case your house becomes unstable when you can no longer shelter inside your house. Second most important would be hydration, water. So the bags come with emergency drinking water rationed out in these single-use packets. We've also augmented them with some local water. And lastly, we have meals. In the bag, we have 2 different options. We first have the famous meals ready to eat, you may know from the U.S. military. These contain about a 2,000 calorie meal. It's good enough to get one adult through one day. They're not very delicious, but they have everything you need, from a main course, a dessert, heating elements, hydration packets, things like that. These bags also have in them the famous Coast Guard brick. Now this brick has all the nutrients that you need to get through a day. They're not very delicious. They look like a brick. They taste like a brick. But this is made for 1 bar every 6 hours per person. So this is divided up into handy bars. This will probably get you through 4 or 5 days just on this brick alone. You won't be very happy that you had to eat this, but you'll still be alive. The bag also contains many other items that you can use, such as hand sanitizer, soap, toothpaste, toothbrush, razor, comb, toilet paper, other sanitary needs. And one of the most important things is light sources. Now the bag came with this kind of flashlight. I don't like these flashlights. They're not very strong. If you drop them, they tend to break. And they take D batteries, which are very hard to locate in Jamaica. So I changed out and added in these smaller flashlights. These are very bright, very powerful, and they only take 1 AAA battery. We have some extra batteries too, readily available around Jamaica. This bag also has candles and some matches, as well as glow sticks. I've also, for our own personal ones at home, I've added in headlamps. Now these are much better, allow you hands-free, very bright. These ones are rechargeable too, so another good option. Lastly, you'll find in this bag things like heat blankets, heater packs, which you can use for heating up food and other ways of seeking warmth, ponchos, and then a multi-tool. This one has a Swiss Army knife. It's a little bit of a cheaper one, but it has a lot of different things you can use: scissors, saw, can opener, knife, screwdriver. I'd recommend, if you can afford it, spend a few dollars, get yourself a nicer multi-tool that's going to be a lot stronger, a lot more sturdy, has the same tools on it, but comes in a much stronger, more useful package, I think. All of these items here fit into one handy carry bag that you can take with you if you need to leave your residence. Remember, the most important thing you can have in your go bag is being prepared. The most important thing you can do is identify shelter. Where can your family be protected from the storm? I highly recommend you find a space inside your house where there are no glass or windows that could be broken. In our case, we have an under the stairs closet that is concrete on all 6 sides. Most importantly, the top, in case the roof were to get blown off, as often happens in a hurricane. Inside here is where we would seek our shelter, where we keep our emergency supplies as well. After shelter, water is of course one of the most important things that you can have. As you can see here, we have a pretty good stockpile of water, and this isn't all that we have, but it's just one of the many ways that we're preparing. So these bottles are readily available in Jamaica. They're usually only a little bit more than 100 Jamaican dollars, and these are perfect. You get one of these per person, that should get you through 3 or 4 days for your family. Another thing you can do is pre-freeze water bottles. These are useful not only for keeping them safe and drinkable, but also they act as an additional way to keep things cooled in your refrigerator or your freezer if the power goes out. Thank you from the U.S. Embassy Kingston, Jamaica Regional Security Office. Remember, don't be scared, be prepared.
Welcome back, everyone. And now the moment you've all been waiting for, the return of our original Consular Conversations host, Des. Welcome back, Des.
Thank you so much. It's really great to be back. I do miss talking to everybody, every month and keeping up with everyone. Val is a hard act to follow, so I'll do my best. But thank you so much. And remember, everyone, do pay attention to your hurricane preparedness.
Yes, of course. So before we get to some of your ACS updates, as well as, of course, questions from our audience, do you mind going over our current operational status in the consular section?
Yeah, we know this is always the #1 question on everyone's mind. And I've already, got to see some of the questions as they were coming in earlier. And yes, everyone wants to know. And we are, it's important for you to understand that, yes, the consular section is processing a limited number of visas every day, but those are limited. The immigrant visa section is reaching out to people who had appointments scheduled or that were canceled or that have, been waiting for quite a while, and they're currently scheduling a limited number of appointments. For non-immigrant visas, it's important that people remember that we are not at this time processing, tourist visas, for an interview. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not doing interview waiver cases. So it's important that everyone knows that if you had a visa that was valid and it expired in the last 4 years, you can send it in. You don't need to wait for an interview. So that really does help a lot of people. And that's an expansion of that program.
Yes.
Otherwise, on non-immigrant visas, the wait time at this point, it can go up to 15 months. So please make sure that you are looking at that before you, schedule an appointment. You may not be able to get an interview prior to your travel.
Yes. So I think the best takeaway is we are still at limited capacity.
Yeah, we're constantly adjusting. We're adding appointment availability as, resources and situation on the ground is, prohibits.
Thank you, Des. So now that we've gone through that, I hear that you have some important announcements for our American citizens who need to renew their passports.
Yeah. So on American Citizen Services, we have a couple of really, really key things. I do want to go back to immigrant visas just for 1 second,
Yes, of course.
because I forgot to mention that police certificates have been extended. I just want to touch on this point because a lot of our immigrant visas are people who are waiting for immigrant visa appointments. Those documents expire.
Yes.
As we know, when those documents expire, it delays the process. We are understanding how much our immigrant visa applicants have been waiting. An expired police certificate means going back to the CRO office and getting a new one. Well, for a limited time, that extension is for 2 years, right? So now that police certificate is not going to expire at the end of 1 year, it'll expire at the end of 2 years. So that's just one less thing that you'll have to go and do when it's time to get that new interview. Okay, sorry about that. I
No,
just
you're
wanted to, before I forgot.
Yes, of course.
On American Citizen Services, we are currently still providing routine and emergency services. All of our applicants, all of our clients are coming in, they're calling, we're getting a lot of inquiries. So remember, please contact us at Kingston ACS at state.gov if you have, emergent questions. We do have limited staffing. So we are experiencing a delay in the amount of passports that we can do. Now that is important for people to understand that we schedule your appointment for a passport renewal online. But with these 2 new programs, we're really hoping that we'll be able to open up more appointments. And these 2 things are, one, if you are an American citizen who's in Jamaica and you find that your US passport is expired and you need to return to the US, there is a new program that allows you to travel to the US on an expired passport. Now, this is something that a lot of Jamaican Americans have run into over the last year, is saying, I got to the airport and I found out my passport was expired. Well, if your passport expired after January 1st of 2020, then they understand that there has been a backlog and a limited availability to replace that passport. So they will board you for a flight directly to the US. Now, this is for adults and for children, but you have to have your passport. So it can't be lost, it can't be stolen, it can't be severely damaged, and it needs to have been issued full validity. Now, full validity is a term that we use, but so that you understand it, if you're over the age of 16, it needs to have been issued for 10 years. Or if you're under the age of 16, it needs to have been issued for 5 years. Okay, so no 1-year passports, no shorter validity passports. All right, so that program, I know it's a limited number of people that it impacts, but those people can quickly return to the US. And with hurricane season approaching, that's a really important one, because if you are here in Jamaica and you want to evacuate and you have an expired passport, you don't need to come to us for an emergency passport. You can return directly home.
Yes.
Okay.
And to clarify, though, this is for a one-way ticket, correct?
Yes.
So you can get to the United States on your expired passport, but you will not be able to return to Jamaica. You will have to renew your passport in the United States while you are there.
Yeah, in order to enter Jamaica, you must have a valid passport. So if your US passport is expired, you can renew it while you're in the States and come back. But you can't travel to another country with the expired US passport, and you can't travel to Jamaica with the expired US passport.
And especially with hurricanes coming up, all of your documents should be up to date.
Yeah.
That's one of the key parts of hurricane preparedness.
Which is what brings us to number 2.
Yes.
Our second new program is one that we are extremely excited to announce. We've been trying to do this for a long time, and Jamaica was selected for a pilot program to allow people who are adults, who are renewing their passports, to do so via the mail. So in America, when you're at home in America and you want to renew your US passport, if you are an adult, you don't go anywhere. You fill out the application, you sign it, you put your passport with the application, and you put it in the mail. That's the usual practice. But when you're overseas, we require you to come in and make an appointment. Mainly that's because we didn't up to this week have an ability for you to pay for that passport. Well, as of this weekend, as of June 20th, we're announcing that you can now pay online for a renewal of that passport. So what that allows you to do is pay for the passport. You get a confirmation, you print out that confirmation, you put it in an envelope with your DS-82 application. That's the application for renewals for adults. The passport, a copy of your passport. And then if you had a name change, we would need to see the documentation for that name change. You put all those in an envelope. You take it to DHL or FedEx or any way to mail it to us, and include with us a way to mail your renewed passport back to you.
Yes.
So the waybill, which any of our DHL offices around, FedEx offices, they understand how to do that. And you just mail it straight to us, no appointment required. Now, we're really hoping that that will allow us to open up more appointments for those people who do require to come in person. Now, those are people who've lost their passports, had them stolen, minors, so anyone under the age of 16 needs to come in person, or someone over the age of 16 who's never had an adult passport. So you have to have a 10-year full validity, 10-year passport in order to qualify for this. But once we can do those via mail, then we can serve some of our other customers who have been waiting. And we understand that, it's been a difficult year for everyone, for our applicants and for the office included.
Yes. So bottom line, to renew a passport, you don't have to come to the embassy anymore.
Yes. So this is so important, and I don't want to understate how excited we are to be included in this pilot. All that information is going to be on our website. We're going to send out email blasts. For our American Citizen Services who are registered for STEP, you'll get an announcement this Friday. So if you aren't registered for STEP, this is a good time for you to do that. It's step.state.gov, step.state.gov, and that's where you get the most recent announcements from us, alerts, hurricane alerts, all of that information we push out via STEP to our American citizens and country.
Perfect. And I know on our promotion for the show this week, one of our viewers asked if it's possible to cancel an appointment they've already made and send in their passport instead via mail. That is an option, correct?
Yes, please. So we do have a lot of people who are who need to come in for an appointment, such as those minors, people with first-time passports, people with lost passports. So if people who can do this program can email us at kingstonacs@state.gov, then we can cancel those appointments and open them up for people who need them. So it's a great way, it's faster service for those who are just trying to renew. You don't have to take a day off work. You don't have to come in and wait in our waiting room, pay online, and we accept credit cards, international credit cards, US bank transfers, Amazon Pay, and PayPal.
Okay.
So this is a broad way to be able to pay for the passport.
Awesome. So Deja is actually asking, and we might not have the answer, Deja, but we'll see if we can answer this for you. As a U.S. Army Reserve Specialist, can I get an expedite case that is waiting for an interview for an immigrant visa?
All right, so there's actually a process for requesting an expedite. I believe it's via NVC.
Yes.
So if you're waiting if you're waiting for a case to be transferred and you're requesting an expedite, you send it via NVC. And I can't speak directly to, anyone's case, but, in circumstances where your family is depending on you, you're going overseas, you just explain your situation, and then that will be sent to us for consideration for expedite.
Yes, of course. Right. Andre a little earlier did ask, we don't have any ACS questions right now, but for immigrant visas, is there a current wait time for an immigrant visa?
All right. So wait times for immigrant visas are, it's hard to explain, but at this time, we are not able to offer any appointment availability to those applicants who become documentarily qualified. That's a hard one for me to say, documentarily qualified. So that means that once your case is documentarily qualified at NVC, we open up appointments to those cases and they get sent to us. At this time, we are not able to offer any appointment availability to those cases. We do not anticipate being able to do that until towards the end of 2021. So we understand that this is quite a wait. As we work through the backlog of cases that were canceled in 2020 and that have been sent up to this point, as soon as availability opens up, we'll be able to start accepting those.
Of course. So as Des said, even if you are now documentarily qualified, it unfortunately does not mean that we can interview you, right then and there. It will take a little bit of time for us to be able to schedule a lot of these interviews.
Yeah, and it is something that we are constantly adjusting, as situations in Jamaica are improving, people are getting vaccinated. There is the hope that we'll be able to, add appointment availability, but our anticipation at this point is that, wait lists, the backlog will continue.
It does. So just one more time to go over our ACS updates. The first one is that for those who have been or whose passport has expired after January 1st of 2020, if they need to get to the US, they can fly on an expired passport one way to get to the United States in any emergency situation. And then the second, of course, is that now for those American citizens who might live here in Jamaica, you can now renew your passport via mail.
And that actually applies to our American citizens who also live in the Cayman Islands. So, you know, we have a consular agent in the Cayman Islands who we adore, and he is wonderful. And he does, you know, he does passport renewals, regular passports, consular reports of birth abroad, special citizen cases, you know, the whole range of services. He at this point will not have to accept those DSAD2, so it takes a step out of the process, because in normal times, that application goes to that consular agent accepts it, then sends it to us, and then we we send it back to the consular agent, and the consular agent sends it back to the applicant. This takes that step out. So those applicants in the Cayman Islands, they can send their passport application renewal directly to us, and we send it directly back to them.
Perfect. Well, Des, thank you so much for coming back on Consular Conversations.
It's really good to be here.
We definitely miss having you on this seat, but we are more than happy to have you as a guest. Of course, thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you, Val, for your portion in the beginning on hurricane preparedness. And please make sure to tune in to our next Consular Conversations, which is going to be on July 14th. This is actually a very special Consular Conversations because it will be with our Consul General Scott. So there'll be a lot of updates, and of course, he will be more than happy to answer any questions that anyone has at that point in time.
It's always great to have him on. He knows this stuff backwards and forwards. He can answer anything, even those questions that we don't always know the answer to. So we're looking forward to that. And remember, you know, if you have questions regarding your non-immigrant visa, you know, case, it's Kingston NIV at state.gov, you know, Kingston ACS at state.gov, Kingston IV. You know, we are here to answer your questions. Just understand we are still operating with limited staffing.
Yes. So if you do not receive an automatic email to any of your, an email back to any of the emails you send us, please know, once again, we are all at limited capacity still. So please be as patient with us as you can, and we will try and, you know, do as much as we can for all of you.
Thank you.
So thank you guys all so much for tuning in, and we will see you next month. Bye.
Bye.